Hi everybody, it's Tatiana and today I'm coming to do a book review of Born of Legend by Sherilyn Kenyon. This is about book 8 or 9, I believe, in her, I don't even know what the name of the series is. I'll put a picture of the book over here and hopefully the name of the series, because it's changed as this has morphed, as she's gone from book to book. This series is a companion series, and so we're only on like book 8 or 9. Typically these kinds of companion series go on into the 20s. So we're in this for the long haul. And I typically read about one of these a year because I really enjoy the audio book narrator, who is Fred Berman, that is used for the majority of Sherilyn Kenyon's books. And so I will listen to this when I go do a road trip for the holidays. I wasn't going to do a review of this. However, I started writing out my notes and I realized that I had more to say and more thoughts than I would be able to do in a wrap up and keep the wrap up reasonably timed. Let's say that. So if you have never heard of this series before, what it is basically a space, it's like Star Trek on acid. It's a space opera series with all of these different planets and different alliances and different alien races as well as human races, but humanity is not like the predominant race in these novels, and it's a huge conflict that's going on in this world that Sherilyn Kenyon has created. And for this story we follow Julian Eaton Anatole, who is an Endarian, and that's pretty much all that I want to say about his character, because there's so much that I could, like, even telling who it's about is a spoiler. But if you look at the listing of the books, it's a spoiler if you haven't read this book but you've read some of the other books in the series. But if you look at the listing of the books and the description of the books, it tells you what characters they're following. That was a lot. Whew! I will say that in this novel, I think Sherilyn Kenyon was attempting to do with the character of Julian what she did with the character of Styx in the Dark Hunter novels. And the main reason why I say that is because this novel was way too long. This audiobook was like 35 hours and some change. Way too long. And it's because she's just attempting to, not attempting, she included far too much in this story to keep the momentum going in the story. You get Julian's redemption arc, and then there's this whole reconciliation portion of the story that goes on, which for some of the characters that it pulls in could have been spread out among other, the forthcoming novels. But instead of doing that, I think what she wanted to do was get Julian's story done and handled with all of the characters that it entails, and move on with the next novel, which is following a character named Bastian, who's on another side of this conflict, so that in 2 more books, when she comes back to this era of the conflict, she doesn't have to rehash. But if you read companion novels, there's a little bit of rehashing that goes on in each story to get you up to date. So that's why I think that she didn't have to do this. So in her attempting to do with Julian's story what she did with Styx's story, I don't want to call it a fail, but it just didn't work out, I think, as well as she was hoping that it would, in my opinion. Now, there, I'm sure, are some that will disagree with me, because there are some Sherilyn Kenyon stans out there, and that's great. I love Sherilyn Kenyon, but this, in my opinion, as someone who has been reading her work for years, it would have behooved her not to do what she did with this story. But it wasn't a complete fail, it just didn't work out. Because in getting Julian's story, you still get the opportunity to appreciate his character and where he is. But there are so many, this is why I say I had to write down the people. Like, I've never written out a review, I don't think. Did I write out a review for, I'm not looking for that right now. I may have written out a review for Dead Men Walking. But this is why I say it's Star Trek on acid. There are so many alliances and families and races that are brought in. You have, for races, the Andarians, the Frictions, the Trisani, humans. Then you have hybrids between the two, because as humanity has gone on and mixed with these races, with these alien species, you have the combination of species. Then you have the organizations, the League, the Centella, the Tavali, the Mavericks, I think they're called. It's a group of pirates that are like the Tavali, but not the Tavali. It's a different set of people. The Porturnum. There's so many alliances and rogue groups. Oh, you have the rogues and planets and people and families that are involved in this. And I kid you not, almost all of them are in this novel at some point. And that just didn't need to be. And I understand, because of the character that Julian is. He's an Andarian royalty. He's the twin of the, I want to say Nakirian's story is the first book in this series. He's Nakirian's twin. It's a lot. Sherilyn Kenyon has done with this series what she hasn't really done before with this in the other books of this series, which is take characters who are not featured in this series, which in each book is the main male character, the main female character, and then sometimes, if there are children, those children perspectives. But there are tertiary characters whose perspectives are given later on in the book, like within the last 5 chapters, that didn't need to happen, because we're gonna get their story later on, if that makes any sense. So I just wanted to share my thoughts on that. If you have not read this series, I highly recommend it. Again, I love the audiobook narrator. I love how he does in some of, I think there's one book where it's a different audiobook narrator, and I don't like the way he does the women's voices, because, oh, if you are not into series where the people who are in a relationship are possessive of each other, whereas you're mine, then this is not a series for you. That's my jam, because I'm not a sharer. Sharing is caring, not. But I didn't like the way that narrator did, and I can't remember who it was or which book it was, did the female voices, because the females in this world that Sherilyn Kenyon has created are all, like, for the most part, not all, for the most part, are kick-ass females. And so they are not these simpering, scared when conflict comes, you know, females who, when things happen and the males get in trouble, the females are, all right, you got your blaster, let me get my 5, let me put on my battle armor, we going out together, cause you fighting, I'm fighting. And the male is like, but boo, you pregnant, decide, I got armor that covers my belly. Like, that's how the females are for the most part in this series. And so there's one audiobook narrator for the series who did not do that well, in my opinion, but Fred Berman does an excellent job with these voices and with these characters. And yeah, so I'm going to continue with the series, because the next book is a book that I have been waiting on for 3 months, and that is Bastian's Stories. So if you have read this series or read anything from this series, let me know what your thoughts are. If you have read this book, do you agree or do you disagree? Let me know in the comments below. And again, if you want to read this series, please do. It's so good. I love it for the fact that it's romance with sexy times and aliens and fighting and Warcraft in space and space stations. I freaking love that element of this series. So if you're looking for something that's an easy read but with characters who are likable or hateable, we'll give you the whole spectrum, because that's another thing about it, because you're getting stories from each side of the conflict that's going on, it's hard to pick a side, and each character from each side that's presented is not someone that you want to hate, even though they may not be on the side of the conflict that you are supporting as you're reading and going along. It makes it really hard to pick a side. But yeah, I absolutely love this series. This book was a little bit of an issue, but aside, the series is great. That's all that I'm going to say. I've been talking for a while. Thank you all for watching. Peace out.